Jacko was a very, very bad clown. Jacko wasn't funny. Jacko wasn't cute. Jacko didn't make children laugh or smile or feel safe. Jacko made the children uncomfortable and afraid. Jacko made children grossed out. Jacko made children feel sad. Nobody liked Jacko, and Jacko knew it all well. But it wasn't his fault. Jacko wanted to be a funny clown. Jonah Galaccio's traveling circus had lots of funny clowns. Cosmo, Peanut, Benny, Ice Cream, Uncle Woody, and even Little Willie. They were all happy clowns, and they loved making children laugh and smile. Jacko wanted to be like them. He wanted to make children laugh and smile too, but they never did. Not once. The children didn't laugh ever at Jacko's jokes, and the children hated Jacko's smile. He never had a single child ever smile back at him. His grin never felt real. It always felt so forced, so painful looking. He didn't ever really look happy, and the children could tell. They would scream and they would cry and shout. Mr. Galaccio would have to make Jacko leave the stage. Jacko hated being a bad clown. He hated the fact that he couldn't make people laugh and clap and be happy. All the other clowns loved Jacko, and he even then loved the other clowns right back. There weren't that many people who liked clowns anymore. The only children who still come to the circus, so that clowns would have to stick together. They were like a family, and the only real family Jacko had ever had in his life. The other clowns cared about Jacko and loved him unconditionally, even if he was a bad clown. That's what the good clowns do. They love people. They never hurt people. They never make the circus. They always make the circus a happy place to be. There were many types of different clowns. There were entertainments that made people laugh and smile. There were also their foils and sidekicks, who had to be the butts of most of their jokes. There were even sad clowns who made people cry, and there was even the bad clowns that nobody liked. The clowns that couldn't even be sidekicks because everyone was so afraid of them. Jacko, of course, was a bad clown. Mr. Galaccio hated Jacko more than the children did. He wanted Jacko gone, or at least never allowed to perform again. After all, Jacko scared the children and upset at them, and it was costing him money. Money was everything to Mr. Galaccio, and if you got it between it and him, you were the enemy. But none of the other clowns were having none of it. As you know, clowns have to stick together. If you get rid of one clown, you'll have to get rid of all of them. Mr. Galaccio knew he couldn't run a circus without clowns, so he had to let Jacko stay. There was no question. Jacko hated being a bad clown. He hated scaring people, and he hated making them upset. Jacko wanted the circus to be a happy place. Clowns especially had to be happy if the circus was supposed to be happy. After all, if the children who were supposed to make you laugh couldn't even smile, how could you? Uncle Woody told Jacko whenever he was having a bad day or needed time to make himself happy, he would perform. He just thought of the happy memory to perk him up, like when he got married or when his son was born or his first kiss, or just the silly things like TV show or payday. But Jacko couldn't do that because Jacko didn't have happy memories. Jacko's life before the circus wasn't very happy. When he was a child, his parents were very sad people. His father was a bad man who liked to hit his mother and scream all sorts of nasty, foul things at her. He would beat her all day and night until his hands were too sore to hit anymore. She would scream, she would cry, she would call for help, but no one ever came. How Jacko could help? He was only a little boy. But Jacko just wasn't upset that he couldn't make people laugh. He also hated all the bad guests that would come to the circus. People who were rude, nasty, and mean. The people would start to shout at the other guests, get into fights, throw things at the clowns, and cuss at them. The mean teenagers and drunk men, the grumpy old people, and worst of all the bad children, who didn't listen to their parents. Oh, Jacko really hated them. He was so jealous. Here were these children were with good parents who loved them, and they rejected them. They were mean and bratty and disrespectful. They had what Jacko always wanted, and they threw it away. The clowns would perform lots of amazing stunts and spectacular tricks to entertain the people who come to the circus. They leapt from great heights, walked on tight ropes, juggled with dangerous objects, drove go-karts at high speeds, balanced themselves on balls and unicycles, shot themselves from cannons, and even set themselves on fire sometimes. Uncle Woody told Jacko that they could do all this because clowns were like cartoons. They could do things that no one else could do because they could never be hurt. You could burn them, you could crush them, flatten them like a pancake, stab them, shoot them, and they always get right back up and come back for more. One night Jacko was upset after having a particularly bad day at the circus. They were in a rough town, and all the people there were really mean. They cursed, profaned, and they even fought with each other. They booed at their performance, they littered, and hardly ever laughed. Jacko really hated them. Uncle Woody said good clowns never hate, but Jacko wasn't a very good clown, and he knew it. Uncle Woody also always said that it was good that clowns should never drink or smoke, but Jacko knew he wasn't a good clown. He was always very sad. He felt like he needed to drink and smoke just to get through the day. Jacko had just finished drinking and he was feeling a bit woozy. He was walking back to the big top so he could lay down and fall back asleep. It was a cold night and Jacko was wearing the red bomber jacket over his usual red suit. But just at the moment, Jacko heard something horrible happening on the circus grounds. He heard a woman crying and screaming for help, and a man yelling at her. Jacko rushed over to a horrible sight. There was a dirty man with a nasty beard, pinning the woman to the ground and hitting her. He was screaming the most awful things and swearing and smacking her really hard. It was a horrible thing for Jacko to see. It reminded him of how his father used to beat his mother right in front of him. How could he smack her and scream at her and tell her that she's worthless? It made him so sick. In that moment, he just didn't see a man hitting the woman. He saw his mother crying on the ground, begging for help. When he looked at the man, he just didn't see his father. He saw a very bad guest. Whoever came to the circus, he saw was a bad child, a very rude teenager, every drunken adult, all the people who used naughty words, and all the people who booed at his friends, all the people that threw things, every single person who littered and screamed, everyone he hated, that man more than he ever did in his life. It was at this moment that the man reached into his jacket and pulled out a large knife. Jacko didn't know what the man was going to do, but he didn't want to find out. So at that moment, Jacko did what he always wished to do, would have done as a child, stepped in and stopped them. The man took one look at Jacko and screamed. He was afraid of clowns. Jacko hated when people were afraid of him, and he'd be really hated by people who were afraid of clowns. The man stabbed Jacko in the stomach and chest over and over, slamming away at him, clumsily, and his hands were shaking from fear. But it didn't work. Jacko didn't get hurt. He didn't bleed. Nothing happened. It's just like Uncle Woody said. Clowns are like cartoons. You can't hurt them. They always come right back for more. Jacko slammed his beer bottle over the man's head, shattering it, knocking the man to the ground and making him drop his knife. The man's face was covered in broken glass. He was screaming even louder now and begging for Jacko to stop. But Jacko was too mad. He hated for this man so much it made him sick. He hated this man so much that he didn't want him to exist anymore. He wanted him dead. That's when the man picked up his man's knife. He stabbed the rude man over and over, splashing blood everywhere. The man yelled and cried and begged Jacko to stop and called for help. But it was a quiet night, so there was nobody around. The man's cries for help were smothered by the sound of him gurgling his own blood and choking it. Jacko stabbed the man over and over until he stopped bleeding. Jacko felt the life drain out of the man and he died. Jacko stood up in his suit and jacket, covered from head to toe in gooey red blood. He looked over to the woman who was trembling in fear. He didn't know what to say to her, but he soon found out that he didn't have to say anything. The woman ran over and hugged him. She wrapped her arms around him and squeezed him tight. She was also happy. Jacko saved her life. He was a hero. She wouldn't be alive right now if it wasn't for Jacko. Just then, Jacko felt something crawl in his face that he never felt before in his life. A smile. He was smiling for the first time ever. A real smile, not a forced one, not a mean one. A real happy smile. one where you can look at someone right in the eyes and tell them they really mean it. It was a soft, curvy smile. It was the first real smile he ever had. It was the first happy memory he ever had. He choked back tears and hugged the woman right back. He was so happy he never wanted the moment to end. The very next day, Jacko was on stage ready to perform. All the children were very frightened, just like every other day. But Jacko wasn't upset. He'd come to expect that. Then he remembered Uncle Woody's advice. Think of a happy memory and your smile will be real. Now he had a happy memory. And the first time ever, Jacko smiled on stage. It was a real smile and the children could tell. They loved it. All the children clapped and cheered. They were so happy. Jacko wasn't a bad clown. Jacko was a happy clown and he could smile, dance, perform tricks, and make everybody laugh. Jacko was also happy. He jumped, he giggled, he danced, he played with the other children. He had a wonderful time. It was the best show circus had done in years, and it was all because of Jacko. All the other clowns were so proud of Jacko. Everyone in the circus was. The animal tamers, the acrobats, the jugglers, the freaks, the dancers, the stuntman, the strongman, even grumpy old Gotcha was proud of him. It was the happiest day of Jacko's life, and they knew he'd only get happier, because now he just didn't have a happy memory. He'd keep getting new ones every day. All the clowns threw another big party for Jacko afterwards. They celebrate. There were balloons, there was cake. It was a great time. But out of the corner of his eye, Jacko noticed something he didn't like seeing. It was a bad child being rude, yelling at his poor parents, behaving badly, making his visitors upset. He was a naughty little boy and the circus was supposed to be a happy place. But Jacko didn't get upset. He wrapped his hand around the hilt of the large knife in his pocket and grinned. It wasn't a good smile. It was a wicked, forced smile. He liked the kind he used to have on stage. It was the kind of smile that makes someone has when they have a naughty thoughts in their head. Jacko had something very, very unpleasant for them in his mind. Jacko wanted the circus to be a happy place. Since his last night, he realized that if things change, he'd have to change them himself. He hated all the bad guests who came to the circus, the rude people and the nasty, mean people, and the people who shout and get in fights and throw things, all the people who booed at his friends and throw things, all the people that cussed and got drunk, all the mean teenagers and the grumpy old people, but most of all naughty children who didn't listen to their parents. He'd fix them all one by one, and it would start tonight, when he'd follow that little boy home. Jacko could only smile. He could laugh. He could make other people laugh. He could do tricks and make all sorts of people happy. But in his heart, he was still a very, very bad clown. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video. And I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.